Let's take a look at the all-star team of the tournament from the 2010 World Cup and see where they are now. Iker Casillas. I mean, who else was going to be put in goal for that tournament? He conceded 2 goals in the entire World Cup as Spain lifted the trophy. He might as well have spent half the games texting on his phone and drinking jars of sangria in the penalty box, such was his size dominance midfield. It hasn't been all plain sailing for Casillas since. Yes, he won Euro 2012, but soon fell out with Jose Mourinho at Real Madrid. Big deal, who hasn't? His form scuttled down the wood chipper before the club he devoted 20 years of his life to packaged him off to Porto in 2015, barely giving him a box of clean tissues to dry his eyes with. Still though, he's just helped Porto to their first league title in 5 years, so it's not all bad. Maicon. This sort of proves just how well thought of Maicon was at the time. The 2010 World Cup was a bit of a flop for Brazil, but Maicon was considered the world's greatest right back. I mean, he'd have to be to keep Dani Alves out of the side. The Champions League winner smacked in a cracking shot with the outside of his boot against North Korea, although I'm sure the local media will have reported that shot as having hit the corner flag, as the Republic no doubt went on to batter Brazil 9-0 and lift the trophy. Anyway, just a few months later, Gareth Bale was making Maicon drastically reconsider whether he wanted to continue with his profession. It only got worse at Man City. He moved to Roma and then Avaí, and he's currently without a club. Sergio Ramos. There we go, another Spaniard takes the place. This team is going to be dominated by that country, alright? Remember when Sergio Ramos first signed for Real Madrid? Back when he looked like a 16-year-old girl and gave away penalties like they were going out of fashion? Paul McShane on steroids, I think the Irish media called him. Alright, it was Eamon Dunphy. Since then, Ramos has got a haircut, won everything in sight for Real Madrid, flirted with Manchester United when he had absolutely no intention of joining, and stands tall as one of the world's greatest centre-halves, all the while having formed a centre-back pairing at international level with a man who, outside of work, he probably wishes he could drown in a bath. Carlos Puyol. Carlos Puyol, as Catalan as they come, he steered Spain into the World Cup final with that bullet header against Germany in the semi-finals. He retired in 2014, having spent his entire career at the Nou Camp. Philipp Lahm. Alright, this one was strange. Philipp Lahm made it into the team of the tournament for both the 2006 and 2010 World Cups, but the one he actually won? No, not a sniff. The 3 Brazil defenders did though. I'm sorry, was nobody watching the semi-final where the backline disintegrated into Titus Bramble wannabes? Since 2010, the German Bilbo Baggins has lifted 5 consecutive league titles with Bayern Munich, a Champions League, the World Cup, spent time being converted into a midfielder for some weird reason, before hanging up the boots last year at the surprisingly young age of 33. Andres Iniesta. Not surprising at all to see this man feature. Andres Iniesta and Xavi were enjoying a devastating hold in football. This was in the middle of their Champions League dominance, particularly over Manchester United. Like the rest of the Spanish and Barcelona lads, Iniesta has been very successful since, but the 34-year-old looks set to sign for a club in Asia, where he will have even more money to just add to the pile, I suppose. Xavi. The metronome in the Spanish midfield, it was nigh on impossible to wrestle the ball off him. Scratch that, you couldn't get near the Catalan master. Xavi looked likely to see out his final days in Barcelona, but like Andres Iniesta, he's decided to call it quits in his 30s. He spent the last 3 years at Qatari side Al Sadd. For 10 years he had the likes of Iniesta, Ronaldinho and Messi to pass to. Now it's Sami Al-Hassawi. Lad, I hope they're paying you well. Bastian Schweinsteiger. Yes, Bastian Schweinsteiger got shoved in this team, but I bet in the back of his head he was thinking, lads, you haven't seen anything yet. Just give it 4 years. He's currently out in the MLS with Chicago Fire after being tossed in the cupboard at Man United for 18 months. Wesley Sneijder. There we go, the first and only nominee from the beaten finalists. I think that just goes to show how universally despised that Holland team was. Sorry, but I don't think anyone is going to be idolising Mark van Bommel or waxing lyrical about Nigel de Jong sticking his size 11s into people's chests 20 years from now. Wesley Sneijder, like Maicon, was coming off the back of a treble-winning season and scored the winning goals against Japan, Slovakia, 2 against Brazil, and then 1 in the semi-final against Uruguay. It was an incredible tournament for him, and if he'd actually won the World Cup and Messi was just a figment of some dentist's imagination, then he'd have won the Ballon d'Or. After stints in Galatasaray and Nice, he's now at Al Jarafa. Diego Forlan. The man who was awarded the tournament's Golden Ball for the World Cup's best player was not a Spaniard. He didn't even play in the final. Instead, he was a man who looked like he'd won a transfer to Manchester United in a raffle some 8 years earlier. No longer a Premier League misfit, Forlan was a world beater for Uruguay, dragging them to the heights of a World Cup semi-final. Then again, Luis Suarez's hand might have had something to do with that. Forlan since signed for Internacional, not to be confused with Internacional, although he did sign for them next. Then it was Cerezo Osaka, Penarol, Mumbai City, and now at 38 years of age, Kitchi. And to think Luis Saha was considered better than him. David Villa. Spain only scored 8 World Cup goals, and David Villa scored 5 of them. Maybe that's why it was considered such a boring tournament. 8 goals from a team that went all the way. Christ lads, Germany scored 7 in one game last time out. Anyway, since then Villa signed for Barcelona, made Manchester United fans cry, won the title with Atletico Madrid, somehow, and now batters them in for fun for New York City in the MLS.